welcome back to my YouTube channel. Recently I gave Google Cloud Associate Engineer exam and I thought of creating this video and sharing my inputs with you as how to prepare and clear the Google Cloud Associate Engineer exam if you are planning to give. In this video, I'm going to basically walk you through the important topics which you need to focus in order to clear the Google Cloud Associate exam. Like other cloud exams like AWS, Azure, the Google Cloud Associate exam is a bit difficult and focuses you on the different aspects like Kubernetes, Docker, and many more topics. So without wasting any time, let's walk through the small document which I have prepared for myself while I was preparing for the Google Cloud Associate. So guys, here are some of the important topics which I feel you should prepare before you attempt for the Google Cloud Associate exam. The first one here are the application services offered by Google. The number one here is the Commute Engine, which acts as an infrastructure as application service. The Google Cloud will take care of all your infrastructure stuff, dealing with the virtual servers, the networking, the operating system, and etc. If I compare Commute Engine with AWS, it is nothing but in AWS, it is the Elastic Commute Cloud. Moving to the next one, we have App Engine, which acts as a platform as application service where developers just need to focus on writing the code. The Google Cloud will take care of underlying infrastructure. We have three types of scaling here. First one is the basic scaling, second is auto scaling, and the third one is the manual scaling. I will not go into the details, but whenever you are reading the documents provided by the Google Cloud, you should know what is basic scaling, what is auto scaling, what is manual scaling in terms of App Engine. Moving to the next one, we have something called as a container engine or a Kubernetes engine. When I compare this with AWS, it is nothing but an elastic container service. So Google will test you on how you can deploy a container image or how can you create a container with the image. So here I have taken an example of a Docker image which I need to deploy on a container as well as create a container in Google. Google basically focuses and tests you on whether you are familiar with the Gcloud commands or not. There are a couple of commands which I will walk you through as we progress. Moving to the next one, here is the cloud function, which is the software as application service, which is a serverless. When I talk in terms of AWS, it is similar to the Lambda function, where you just write your code and deploy it, and it acts as a serverless thing. Moving to the next one, we have something called as a container registry. The container registry is similar to the AWS Elastic Container Register, where you need to register your images in the Google Cloud. So for an example, I've taken here the example of Docker image. How can I register a Docker image on the Google Cloud? So you should be familiar with the Gcloud command here, as how can I register or how can I deploy the image of a Docker on the Google Cloud. Moving to the next here, second topic is the storage type. You should be familiar with the data which is supported by the Google Cloud. The first one here is the structured data. The second is the unstructured data, and the third here is the semi-structured data. Google offers you variety of storage types for storing your data. If you are looking out to store the relational data, the Google Cloud has something called as the Cloud SQL for you. If you want your data to be analyzed Then Google has something called as a big query for you. If you are looking out store the data in petabytes, then Google has something called the cloud big table for you. Similarly to AWS, Google also offers you to store the images and the files in the storage called as a it's called as a cloud storage, which is similar to the AWS S3, which is nothing but a simple storage service. Moving to the next one, we have the Google Cloud Storage classes. Like AWS S3, we have certain classes here in Google Cloud Storage. First one is a multi-regional, second is the regional, third is the nearline, and the fourth is the core line. The core line is nothing but a AWS Glacier. If you are accessing your data infrequently, which is like once in a month, you go for nearline storage class, which is similar to the S3 infrequent access. If you want to access your data frequently, you go for a regional storage class in Google, which is nothing but a S3 standard in AWS, and all these offer you 99.9% of an SLA. Moving to the next one, we have something called as IAM roles. Like AWS, Google also helps you or provides you to control the access of the Google resources and as well as the data. So there we are having three types of roles here. First one is primitive or a basic role, which is further divided into the owner, editor, and the viewer roles. The second here is the predefined role. So there are a couple of predefined roles offered by Google to you to in order to control the data access or the resource access. And the last one here is the custom role. If you do not fit in the above two, which is the basic role or a predefined role, you can define your own custom role in order to control the accessing the Google resource or a data. Moving to the next topic here is the cloud storage, which when compared to AWS is the S3, or we call it as the object storage in the Google Cloud. Like AWS, we have the hierarchy offered by Google here, which is organization, folder, and the project level kind of hierarchy. When we talk about the object storage, it comes in the mind called something bucket storage. So the Google offers you to control the access of bucket in which you would be storing your files or objects etc. So we have two types of storage permissions when we deal with object and the bucket. For the bucket level, there is something called as a uniform storage permission. If you want to control the access at the object level, you have something called as a fine storage permission. I will not go into the depth of this, but whenever you are reading the document provided by the Google, please go through this, what is mean by the uniform storage permission and what is mean by the fine storage permission. Moving to the next important concept here is big data versus big table versus big query. When and how you can store and in which which storage you can opt for. When you have your data in or a data volume in petabytes, I would recommend you to go for the big table, which is offered by the Google. The data stored in the big table is with the key value pair. If you are looking to store the data or your volume of the data is in gigabytes, then go for the Cloud SQL as shown here on the screen. If you want to analyze your data like a data warehousing which we use, go for a big query which will help you to analyze your data. Moving to the one of the important concept which you need to keep in your mind is whenever you are dealing with the time series data, that data should be always stored in the big table offered by Google Cloud. Like AWS, Google also helps you to deal with the billing of your resources as how you have stored or how much you have used that resource. So Google comes up with something called as a billing account, which can be linked to different projects. And using that billing account, you can pay the bill depending upon the how much resource you have used. Moving to the next one important concept here is the monitoring and the logging. Like AWS, we have in AWS we have something we will call as a Google trial. In AWS we have something called as the cloud trial. In Google we have something called as a stack driver. The stack driver takes care of your monitoring of your resources, monitoring of your APIs and everything. And also you can store the logs of that into the three storage options, which is Google Storage, BigQuery, and the cloud pops up if you're dealing with real-time data. Moving to the next one and the important which Google Cloud Associate exam focuses is whether you are familiar with Gcloud Commands and the KubeCTL commands. So there are thousands of Gcloud commands used, but I would highly recommend you to be familiar with the commute commands, the app commands, the config commands, the project commands, the container commands. So here are the few commands which I remember or which I focused while I was preparing myself for the Gcloud Associate exam. Moving to the next one, here is something called as a Gsutil commands. These commands are basically related to the bucket. If you want to create a bucket in a region, or if you want to move the contents from one bucket to another bucket, you should be familiar with the Gsutil commands offered by Google. Like AWS, there is something called as a virtual private cloud in Google. So you should be familiar with and when can we use the shared VPC, when can we use the VPC pairing, when can we use the VPC tunnels, or how can you connect on-premise to the Google Cloud. In AWS we have something called as a direct connect. So similar kind of here is offered by Google. If you are new to the Kubernetes and you do not know what is Kubernetes and what terminologies are used in the Kubernetes, I would highly recommend you to go through the basic Kubernetes tutorial. You should be familiar with the terms called as load balance in Kubernetes. What is node port? What is cluster IP? What is node pools? What is daemon set? Once you are familiar with this, you would be able to grasp the commands related to KubeCTL when you are dealing with when you are preparing yourself for the Google Cloud Associate exam. Some of the other topics which I would like you to focus is what is the Firebase, when and which scenario the Firebase is used. One thing, if you see in your exam related to the mobile apps, you should have in your mind something called as a Firebase. If you are dealing with a real-time data streaming, then Google has something called as a data flow. Similarly in AWS we have Kinesis. As I talked earlier in above topics related to the role and permissions, you should be able to distinguish between the data viewer and a job user role. There are a couple of questions asked in the exam related to BigQuery. When you want to access, for an example, when you want to access the data, only a third person needs to access the data in the BigQuery, you would give the data viewer role. If you want to run certain queries on the data, you would give the BigQuery job user role. Also, you should be familiar with the types of load balancers offered by the Google Cloud. One of the known load balancer which you would see in the exam is the HTTPS load balancer. It supports the web sockets when it is used in the backend. You should be also familiar with the JKE stuff, which is Google Kubernetes. You should be familiar with what is node auto repair or what is node auto upgrades. When you want your container to or a node to have an updated container version, you will.
I hope this video was quite informative and will guide you enough to prepare for the Google Cloud Associate Engineer exam. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe, like and comment on this video. I wish you all the best for your Google Cloud Associate Engineer exam. Keep smiling, keep learning and take care of yourself. Bye.